Sarah Hare. When John asked me to introduce our speaker, I went straight to the internet to do my research, and after watching video clips, reading articles, and perusing slick media campaigns, I am genuinely thrilled to have the privilege of introducing our guest tonight. He is an Emmy award-winning creative professional, columnist, factivist, author of the book Not Equal, Civil Rights Gone Wrong, and co-founder of RadianceFoundation.org. Ryan has been invited to the stage tonight because of his dynamic and compelling willingness to join into the fray of the current culture wars, of which there are many. The raging war against life, divisive LGBTQ issues, and confusing social justice controversies. Given the gift of life by his birth mother and thereby the opportunity to flourish in a loving family of 15, Ryan will share his unique insight as an adoptee and adoptive father at a time when male voices in the largely female contingent of the pro-life arena are often cast aside. Please extend a warm welcome to Ryan Bomberger.
All right, how does everybody feel tonight? That wasn't really convincing. I heard this side, but I didn't really hear the left side, which does make sense. Everybody feel alive? Glad to be alive? Good. It is awesome to be alive. It is a gift that none of us should take for granted. Thank you, John, and your entire team at NC Family for inviting me to speak. And I love your vision statement. I just want to read this again. A state and a nation where God is honored, religious freedom flourishes, families thrive, and life is cherished. You cannot flourish without the truth. And we live in a culture today that constantly tells us, well, that's not my truth. That might be your truth. But there is no such thing as my truth or your truth. There's just the truth. Can I get an amen in here? Amen. We have a culture that is so broken on so many levels. We are all broken, but thank goodness we serve a creator who redeems and rescues all the time. What we have to do is the truth, embracing the truth that every human being is made in God's image. It changes the way that we see people. It changes the way that we react to situations. When you see someone as being made in the image of God, you change the way that you behave. And so when we do that, instead of looking through the broken lenses of the world, and the world has a lot of broken lenses, lens of race, lens of socioeconomic status, lens of 72 genders, whatever it may be now. But we have to look through the breakthrough filter of Christ. And so what we do through the Radiance Foundation is we love doing that. My wife was an educator for 13 years. I was a creative director in the ad agency world for the same amount of time. My wife taught in both public and private school. In fact, she's now homeschooling mama. She's also the co-founder of the Radiance Foundation. She does long for the riot lockdowns in Philly. Her last 3 years were in Philly, because sometimes that's easier than homeschooling, I'm just saying. But homeschooling is a blessing. We love it. But we wanted to combine what God had given us as an educator, as a creative, and do three things. We want to illuminate, educate, and motivate. We want to illuminate the truth that every human life, whether you're planned, unplanned, able, disabled, whatever beautiful hue of skin you have, every human life has God-given purpose. Then we want to educate on these culture-shaping issues. We talk about the easy stuff: abortion, racism, fatherlessness, poverty, gender radicalism, basically the war on common sense. Have you noticed that there is a war on common sense? So we illuminate, we educate, and then we motivate. Because what good is your knowledge, what good is your faith if you don't put it into action? How many of you are good at motivating other people, just by show of hands? Wow, that's kind of depressing. We're supposed to be influencing the world. We're salt and light, right? Maybe you're better at self-motivation, right? Maybe not either, I don't know. But we want to do these three things because we live in a culture where too often the world's screaming a lie, and Christians cower in a corner somewhere being silent. We are the ones who have the truth that can set people free. And so I love creating stuff that's fearless, factual, and freeing. This is some of the stuff. You can go to radiance.life. It's the easiest way to get to our website. We have infographics, we have memes, we have weekly op-eds, a Right for Christian posts, and town hall. We have a lot of content, videos, and just stuff to equip you to feel confident to engage in conversations. Sarah mentioned earlier, I am a factivist. There's a difference between an activist and a factivist. I applaud those who sense injustice and want to do something about it, but you cannot act without the facts. It leads to dangerous consequences. And so we want to make everyone factivist. We have other tools too, like books that we've written. Actually, this is written by my favorite author on the planet. It's my wife, Bethany Bomberger, because we spend so much time trying to change the mind of an adult, but we wouldn't have to do that work if we taught children an age-appropriate pro-life worldview. And so this is one of the resources that we have. Actually, it's at the table right outside the door here. And also, I can't even believe that we have to even create something like this, that we even have to say this, but this is our newest book coming out on December 5th. It's called She is She. It's all about undeniable, biological, beautiful her. That's available at sheisshe.com, or just go to our main website. Everything that we do, everything that we create, and I know that this is the motivation too for NC Family, is 1 Corinthians 13:6 says, love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in the truth. How many of you remember where you were on June 24th? Nobody. Wow. Okay, so I remember because that was the day that the Dobbs decision came out. I was by myself, which was a rare occurrence. My kids were at camp. My wife was at the Pro-Life Women's Conference. Our staff was actually with her. And all of a sudden the decision comes down. My wife calls me. She's crying on the one end of the phone, and I start crying because it was just a reminder from God that even in the political climate, even when it seems in the natural that things are impossible, we serve a God of the impossible all the time. And so although Roe was aborted, yes, and I understand we have to fight state after state. I know this recent election, there were some really disappointing ballot initiatives that were approved in other states, but we can never give up. I thank heaven that slavery abolitionists never gave up, because I would not have made a good slave, I'm just saying. Never, ever give up, which is why I love talking about the beauty of possibility. My family is the tangible representation of that. Sarah mentioned that there are 15 in my family. It's your typical American family. I have 6 brothers, 6 sisters, 10 of us were adopted. And it's interesting because people often ask me, well, what motivated your parents to adopt? What influenced them? You kind of hear the subtext to it. It's like, what possessed your parents to it? Well, 2 things: love and brokenness. My mom had an alcoholic father. She grew up in a trailer park. She had an alcoholic father who was emotionally and psychologically abusive, and my mom was placed in a children's home for 1 year at the age of 5. We often underestimate young people, and I love that John recognized the groups of young kids that are here, teenagers that are here, but never underestimate youth. And I'm sure someone probably would have underestimated my mom at 5 years of age. That's where she got the heart for adoption. In fact, at this home, there was a little girl who had physical disabilities, and no one came to visit this little girl. No one came to hug her. No one came to just be with her. My mom had her parents to visit her separately, but no one came for that girl, and that's what broke a 5-year-old's heart. And as my mom tells us the story, she remembers getting down on her knees one night and just praying to God, God, help me be a mommy to those who don't have one. And I know sometimes people think, well, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, I couldn't be an adoptive parent, I couldn't do whatever, fill in the blank, because you feel like things have to be perfectly lined up. But see, life is never picture perfect, and that's actually what makes it so beautiful.
Life is never picture perfect. Human beings come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, and abilities. No matter how much we plan, no matter how much we think we're prepared, the unplanned happens all the time. It's how we respond to the unexpected that shows our true humanity. But many do not see the value of every human life. Too many are willing to discard those who don't fit the picture of perfection. Abortion destroys the chance to love and to be loved. We never know what will fill the frames of our lives, or how empty those frames can be when we allow exceptions.
Every life is a gift.
Our society tells us that children are a burden, but Scripture tells us that children are a blessing. See, my family is filled with those exceptions that the world would so easily write off because we didn't fit the picture of perfection. We weren't planned. We had disabilities. We had ... But I thank God for parents who love the mess out of us. I grew up in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Anybody ever been to Lancaster County? So you know about the Amish, right? Apple dumplings, whoopie pies, good stuff. Stay away from the scrapple. Anyway, although maybe people like scrapple here, I don't know. But I grew up on ham loaf, and my wife's from New York City, and she's like, what is ham loaf? It's good stuff. What's funny is I travel all around the country, and I've been asked several times, well, are you Amish? I'm like, no. I like electronics. No, I'm not Amish. I love the Amish. My grandparents were Mennonite, which is kind of like Amish light. So I guess that's close enough. But I loved growing up where I grew up. You know, there were 13 kids, and usually the whole neighborhood was on our farm here, and you see just a portion of our farm. Oh my goodness, if these walls could speak. Well, actually, I'm glad walls don't speak because too much stuff they would reveal, but there was so much love in this home. And I will tell you, growing up in a family of 15, we had, in the beginning, 1.5 bathrooms. Just let that sink in. I had 6 sisters. 1.5 bathrooms doesn't really work out so well. These are the original Bombergers, my parents, Henry and Andrea Bomberger, and the 3 biologically related children, the homemade ones, I'm not sure what I should call them, the original ones. But this was, when people look at this picture, they think, well, that's picture perfect. But see, God knew better. My mom thankfully met a man who shared the same heart, because you're going to adopt 10 kids, you should probably be on the same wavelength. So, most amazing man that I've ever known. And they say often that a picture is worth 1,000 words. This is actually the first moment my mom was able to hold me. I know I was cute at one point, but sometimes you still have to explain that picture because you can't tell from this picture what my mom had to go through in order to adopt me. In fact, her father was involved with our family, the original Bombergers, for those few years. But the moment they talked about adopting me, my mom knew her father was broken, didn't realize he was also deeply racist. And so he said, I'm going to clean up the language, but if you bring that black child into your home, you're going to ruin your family. And so my mom literally had to lose a father in order to gain a son. So the moment they adopted me, he had nothing to do with our family. He missed out on 13 amazing grandkids. He could have loved us. We would have loved him back. He missed out. I will say my parents chose well. They chose me. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And that just highlights, when I talk about the beauty of possibility, it's impossible to talk about that without talking about the beauty of sacrifice, but not the way that the world understands sacrifice. Because the world understands sacrificing others. See, that's easy. But self-sacrifice, not so easy. Are there any parents here who've ever sacrificed for your kids? Some of you, yeah. Maybe sometimes those kids don't fully appreciate those sacrifices. Any of you have a stubborn child, a strong-willed child? If they're here, please don't raise your hand. Just saying, but I want to encourage you, because I was one of those children where my parents didn't know exactly what to do with me. I think my first mission in life was actually to test their strength as parents, see how far I could push them. But I would just say, just wait for about 20 to 30 years, and that stubborn-willed nature will become something constructive. I'm still on my apology tour with my parents. Seriously, I don't know how they put up with me. This is my father, the reason why I love being a dad, the reason why I love being a husband. My dad was a man who loved Jesus. And when you love Jesus, that natural outflow is loving people. See, my dad was a father who loved those that other men abandoned. He was the same man at home as he was outside of the home. And I know not everyone can say that about their father, but I had an amazing father in my life. And this graphic really defines our family's journey. It says here, color isn't what binds us, love is. There are so many people who would tell my parents, well, how are you going to raise a child who isn't the same color as you are? I didn't realize you had to be the same color as someone to love them. And I thank heaven my parents just defied all the naysayers. And I will say, a lot of us probably lost someone that we loved or knew of someone close, a friend we lost during the height of the pandemic. My dad passed away on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, the 22nd. in 2021. It was the hardest thing I've ever been through. But I would tell you that really tragic anniversary of Roe v. Wade, I feel like his death redeems that day for me. He left behind an incredible legacy of love and faith. And I hope to be a fraction of who my dad was. When I talk about the beauty of possibility, I love shattering some of these myths. And this is actually the DNA of the abortion industry, that unplanned equals unwanted equals unloved. It's what they thrive on. But yet my parents shattered the myth of the unwanted child. This is an old article, and I loved it. They didn't do many interviews, but this was one of them, and I love the title. The journalist actually understood what they were sharing about adoption. And then you see the title here. It says, quote, unwanted children, unquote, find their wanted. See, there's no such thing as unwanted. We may have been unwanted by a biological parent or parents, but we are all wanted by someone. And I'm the one in the bottom middle. Handful right there. But I was a favorite in the family. Anybody else have that title? It's a good title to have. My youngest daughter, Aaliyah, is always saying that she's the favorite in the family, and it's hard to respond when she says it, because I have 4 favorites. I love them all. They're lovely, crazy. This is all of the siblings, all the Bomberger kids. Like, everybody's got an afro. Even the white people in the picture got an afro. It's just, these are all of us. We're white, we're black, white and black, Native American, Vietnamese, able, disabled. Everyone in this picture has special needs, just like everybody in this room tonight has special needs, which are to love and to be loved. And I thank God that we had parents who never, ever gave up, didn't listen to all the naysayers, didn't listen to the world saying, you can't do this. And one of the most powerful things in this picture, have you guys ever heard the word diversity? Anybody? Okay, just making sure. It's a rare word. It's hardly ever spoken. This is obviously a picture of diversity, but it's more than just skin color. It's experiential diversity. Some of my siblings came from some horrific backgrounds. But I'll tell you, one of the most powerful acts of racial reconciliation is bringing a child of a different color or ethnicity into your home and loving them, simply because they deserve to be loved. And that's why one of the foundational tenets of the Radiance Foundation is this: we are one human race. Can I get an amen in here? This is not a call to be colorblind. God is a colorful God, but he didn't create color for us to separate ourselves by it. He created color for us to enjoy and to celebrate. Acts 17:26, from one blood, he created us all. And so I love that my family is this representation. Our family is like the reward of abolitionists. It's the reward of the civil rights movement, where it says we are all equal. And so I want to show you now a picture of what supposedly unwanted looks like. I don't know what image you may have in your mind when you hear unwanted child, but this is just my family, my brothers, my sisters, their spouses, their children. There is one extended family member in the picture. My grandma is in the middle of the picture, but everybody else from our immediate family. So this is supposedly what unwanted looks like. So this is all of us, the Bombergers, not the Duggars, the Bombergers. 64 strong in this picture. And what's crazy, this was taken 6 years ago. So there are 15 more lives added to this through marriage, new births, and adoptions. This is the, yes. This is the legacy of love that my father left behind, and my mom continues to unleash purpose. This picture is possible because of courageous women who chose to be stronger than their circumstances. This picture couldn't even happen. And I strongly believe that someone had to have spoken life and hope into those situations. And we all get that opportunity in different ways to be able to speak life and hope, especially to those facing unplanned pregnancies. I've never met my birth mom. I did search for her years and years ago, because all I want to do was actually to thank her. I sent a song that I'd written called Meant to Be, and I'd asked the court, can you just please give her a copy of this song? So all I want to do is just say thank you. So then I also figured out as a creative, how do I show all the things I've been able to become in my life by the grace of God because of her singular decision? We often don't think about the ramifications of a singular decision, especially when we're younger. We don't think about the effect tomorrow, the effect next month, the effect next year. But a singular decision can have reverberations for generations. And so I wrote the lyrics, I sang the lyrics to this song, this jingle, and I have to credit My birth mom, I consider her birth mom strong. And though I may not see her face to face, maybe some ways, somehow online, she'll see this. And so this is a tribute from her birth son, thanking her for going through 9 months of a traumatic pregnancy.
You couldn't see what I would be. It wasn't part of your plan. Stronger than your circumstance, you gave my life a chance. Touching the future before it began. You're the reason I am here. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose. I know deep down in my soul, my life has purpose.
That's my story. I am literally the 1% that's used 100% of the time to justify abortion. And the circumstances of our conception never changed the condition of our worth. Did anybody in here control the circumstances of their conception? Anybody? Because that would be weird. None of us have that ability, but some of us pretend that we can be arbiters of human value based on different circumstances. Which brings me to another myth that we have to continually shatter, that wantedness equals worth. In fact, one of the leaders in that whole mindset was the founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger, who was a very reluctant mother. You see one of her books here, Motherhood in Bondage. Obviously didn't have a positive take on motherhood. She was a broken individual. In fact, her slogan was, every child a wanted child. Well, every child is a wanted child by someone. But she birthed an organization that does not see through the breakthrough filter of Christ, but through the broken lenses of the world. In fact, in her book, chapter 18, her book was called Women in the New Race, chapter 18, she's the mother of the birth control crusade, and this is how she defined birth control. She says, birth control is nothing more or less than the facilitation of the process of weeding out the unfit, of preventing the birth of defectives or of those who will become defective. Sounds like women's empowerment, doesn't it? Not really. Planned Parenthood, it's interesting, their whole business model changed over the years. In the late 30s, this is the birth control brochure. And in the middle panel, they're being asked, well, is it an abortion? And it's funny because in the 30s, they actually understood that life began before birth, because you can see the question here, is it an abortion? And the answer is, abortion kills life after it has begun. Well, they knew that in 1938, but they don't know that in 2022. See, it's amazing what happens when your business model changes. And we saw this especially during COVID, when they were shutting down businesses all across the country. Only certain things were essential. Well, apparently abortion mills were essential. And they kept, proclaiming abortion is healthcare, abortion is healthcare. Violence is not healthcare. Let me just put it in this context. If abortion is healthcare, then I guess slavery was job care. Yep, I said it. Planned Parenthood, their tagline is care no matter what, but it truly is scare no matter what. This is what they have to say about adoption. They say the psychological responses to abortion are far less serious than those experienced by women bringing their unwanted pregnancy to term and relinquishing the child for adoption. It's why they abort 1,000 human lives for every one single adoption referral. See, adoption doesn't make them money. And what is so crazy, we live in a world, have you noticed that the world's a little bit upside down? Just a little. So surreal out there. Planned Parenthood calls itself an anti-racist organization now. How are you going to be an anti-racist organization if you're the leading killer of black lives? Police are being accused of killing black lives, and it's an epidemic. 228 in 1 year in 2020, 490 white individuals. 80% of all of those individuals were armed with a deadly weapon, so that puts things in a whole different context. I thank God for our police, our law enforcement officers, men and women who protect and serve. Anytime someone abuses their authority, absolutely they need to be held to account, but there's not an epidemic of police killing individuals, but there is an epidemic of Planned Parenthood killing unarmed lives. In fact, they kill 360 Black lives every single day. Every day. So part of what we do through the Radiance Foundation is we've done some billboard campaigns, and so we first launched our billboard campaigns in Atlanta. That was crazy. I mean, combining race and abortion, two of the easiest topics possible, I guess. That just ignited a media firestorm. New York Times, USA Today, CNN, MSNBC, went everywhere. We placed another billboard campaign in are you familiar with the conservative San Francisco Bay Area? Nope. We placed 60 billboards that said Black and Beautiful, toomanyAborted.com. And we were exposing Planned Parenthood. We were highlighting the pregnancy center resources that are available, calling men to responsibility. And so we were denounced by the ACLU, which if you're denounced by them, you're obviously doing something right. We were denounced by Planned Parenthood. That's predictable. Denounced by pro-abortion politicians, expected that. But then we were denounced by the NAACP, a group I grew up revering for many reasons, Brown v. Board of Education just being one. I thought, wait a minute, how are they denouncing us? They said that the billboard campaign was horribly racist and that it gave the false impression that Planned Parenthood murders Black babies. Those were their words. They kill Black babies, white babies, and every hue in between. In fact, last year, over 380,000 of them. And so being the factivist that I am, I decided I was going to write an op-ed about it, calling out the NAACP for their solidarity with Planned Parenthood. And so I entitled the article, "The National Association for the Abortion of Colored People." Yeah, that was their reaction too. They didn't like it. So they sued me, they sued the Radiance Foundation, which I just find funny. They sued a brown guy for exercising one of my most basic civil rights, free speech. I have friends inside the NAACP, and I encourage them to change it from within. They're dead wrong on the issue of abortion and school choice, and well, there are many others. But 2 years in federal court. 2 years, we never even thought this case would go to court. And we were represented by Alliance Defending Freedom, and we won. So thank you, ADF. So many of the things that we never thought we would face, and that's what Satan always trying to do. He's trying to scare you into a corner, trying to get you to shut up, because he knows when truth is spoken, that people will be set free. We love just exposing the industry, and we're always compassionate toward the individual, but there's so much lunacy out there, and sometimes you have to laugh at it. In fact, I have 2 boys, 2 girls, and I want my girls to understand what true feminism is, not this modern feminism stuff. So my youngest daughter, Aaliyah, sings in some of our promos, and so I have her joining in this promo. It just highlights what we call fake feminism.
They love to tell ya, abortion's so good for ya. Just pay a fee and get equality. Their fraud's extensive, their lies defenseless. Planned Parenthood's been counting for a century. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. They don't want you to know. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. It's fake feminism. All they want is your dough.
This is basic health care.
Thousands of women die before Roe every year.
We're not political. Planned Parenthood, we're nonpartisan.
Planned Parenthood is fake feminism. Fake feminism. Fake feminism. They don't want you to know. It's fake feminism. Fake feminism. Fake feminism. All they want is your dough.
Yeah, but fake feminism summed up in a little jingle. During COVID, where people exploited all kinds of things and pushed fear, Planned Parenthood committed more abortions than ever in their history. It's funny because people apparently couldn't get real medical health care because breast exams and pap tests, they plummeted by 200,000, but abortions increased by 30,000. So they couldn't actually provide real health care, but they certainly could kill more human beings than ever before. And that leads me to something that we're dealing with in our culture right now, where we're told that pregnancy centers are fake clinics. Anybody hear that? Fake clinics. In fact, here's an expert on that, Senator Elizabeth Warren.
In Massachusetts right now, those crisis pregnancy centers that are there to fool people who are looking for pregnancy termination help outnumber true abortion clinics by 3 to 1. We need to shut them down here in Massachusetts, and we need to shut them down all around the country. You should not be able to torture a pregnant person like that.
Okay, first of all, let's unpack some of that. By pregnant person, she means what? Thank you. Say the word again. Stop erasing women. The radical left, this is insane. The other part is that she was bemoaning the fact that there are more pregnancy care centers than there are abortion mills. That's a good thing. How about a hand clap for that? I mean, so insane. And then the third part, the whole torture thing. So I'm sorry, John, I didn't really tell you about this, but this is a little explicit, but there aren't young children here. So this is what she meant by torture. Hold on. Oh my gosh. Baby boutiques, millions of free items given to mothers and fathers by pregnancy centers across the country, parenting classes. This is not, you will never find something like this inside of a Planned Parenthood, ever, because they want people to abort. And that's why, if I had to sum up the difference between the abortion industry and pregnancy centers, is this: the abortion industry lures women with their lies. Pregnancy help centers love women with their lives. And I know NC Family stands with pregnancy centers all across the country because we understand the beauty of compassion. Compassion is not saying, oh, you're going to be miserable because of this unplanned pregnancy. No, it's saying, I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to walk this journey with you. See, with an abortion, there's no walking along a journey. It's just you commit the action, do the transaction, and shove them out the door. It's very different. I'm going to skip past some of these things because I want to be able to get to, because I know it started a little later than planned. I want to make sure we get to the end. But this is really crucial. We are stronger than our circumstances. And as Christians, we have to understand that it's not just in our physical strength, but it's based on, Philippians 4:13. It says, I can do some things through Christ. What? No, it says what? I can do what? All things through Christ who strengthens me. We live in a culture today that says dads are just, optional, that guys don't really matter. I don't care what society says. Dads always matter. Can I get an amen in here? Now I want to show you just some examples of what we call the possibility quotient. I mean, how many by show of hands have ever done more than you thought you could do? You blew your own mind, your own expectations. You're about a fifth of you. John, we're going to have a self-esteem seminar after this. It's how we're wired. Scripture says that we're overcomers. We're not undercomers. And so I'll give you a few examples several examples of those who the world says, well, they should have been aborted. Here's one, brilliant. He was adopted in love. No one ever would have believed that he would become who he became. When he passed away, I wrote an article about him. Steve Jobs changed the world. Adoption changed his. The founder of Apple was adopted and loved. And it's crazy because I photoshopped the mess out of things, but I did not touch the picture on the left. It was almost like God knew. He was like, Steve. I'm just saying. How many have been impacted by the genius of Apple? Now, granted, it's gone downhill since Tim Cook took over, but that's a whole other story. This other individual, this little girl was in the foster care system for years. She was adopted by her grandparents. She became the world's most decorated gymnast. Her name is Simone Biles. And I will say this, she announced on Instagram that she is pro-abortion. And she says that no child should ever have to suffer in the foster care system. Yes, ideally, no child should have to suffer, but the foster care system is a rescue from abuse and neglect. As broken as the system is, it's still a rescue for a lot of these children. And she's the tangible example of the beauty of possibility. because she was rescued, because she was loved, she never would have become that. So that's why a lot of times when we speak in college campuses and high schools, we have to shatter this myth that pregnancy is not the end of your life, or I should say an unplanned pregnancy is not the end of your life. And I know this deeply personally because of my own wife. In fact, this is one of the ultrasounds where her baby girl, she loves this because this is kind of how this is her chilling on the left side here. But this baby girl radically changed Bethany's life. In fact, an earlier ultrasound, I don't have the earlier one, she went to the ultrasound appointment by herself, my wife, Bethany. Her boyfriend at the time, she had walked out of a toxic relationship. He was abusive. She walked away only to find out that she was pregnant. And as a teacher in inner city Philly, she would try to warn her kids from making mistakes that could become generational. And here she had fallen and felt so much shame. But when she saw that ultrasound, she saw that little blinking like piece of rice. It was like, that was just the heartbeat. And she felt like God was wrapping his heart around her. And she was wrapping her heart around her baby. In fact, when she went home that night, she went home and she opened up a journal. And in the margin, it was the Psalm 34, 4 and 5. And it said, "And I sought the Lord, and he relieved me of all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. They are never covered with shame." Well, she named that baby girl Radiance. And she's the reason for the name of our organization.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Now I know my ABC. Now try multiplication. Me.
Good job. Give me 5.
My wife is such an incredible woman. She loves the Lord. In fact, that baby girl brought her back to the Lord. And she thought even if she had to be a single mom the rest of her life, it was going to be okay because they were going to be 2 strong women who loved Jesus. But then came along this great guy. Okay, it was just me, but in fact, this is actually the day that we got married. This is my wife, Bethany, and our little one, Ray, Radiance. And I became a husband and a dad on the same day. In fact, it was just 2 days before she turned 2, was able to adopt her when she turned 5. In fact, I adopted her, and then we both adopted our youngest son, whose name is Justice, on the same day in Atlanta courthouse. And I don't know how many of you men admit that you ugly cry, but I was ugly crying that day because only miracle after miracle made that possible. And so this is my family today, and I talk about those reverberations from my birth mom's singular decision. These are the most beautiful ones. This is my family. We're the Bombergers, they call us the Bombs. And so my kiddos from left to right, my Aaliyah, my Ray, Radiance, my oldest son, Micaiah, my youngest son, Justice, and my wife, Bethany, the love of my life. I can't imagine life without her, and she can't imagine life without Ray. I mean, none of this would happen without courageous decisions. And so if you don't remember anything else that I've said tonight, hopefully remember this, that some of the best things in life are unplanned. And so the last thing I want to leave you with is actually just some thoughts and some words from my youngest daughter, Aaliyah. This is when she was 11. I recorded this bit. The video that you saw of all the things I've been able to become in my life, by the grace of God, she came into the studio and said, "Oh, Dad, I love that song. Can I sing to the song?" And this is when she refused to sing in front of anybody else. You know when you try to show off your child to somebody and you're like, "Hey, Johnny, do this," and he makes you look like a fool? Well, that was Aaliyah, never wanting to do anything in public. Thankfully, she's now doing that. She's actually singing in public. But she asked, "Well, what words should I sing?" I said, "Baby girl, just sing whatever comes to mind." And so I think of this in light of our culture that needs us to be light, that needs us to show the beauty of possibility through a God who does the impossible all the time. So as she's singing this, I'm being the sappy dad that I am because I'm thinking she wouldn't.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
Tonight, when you give to NC Family, you can help shift culture. You actually help make lives like mine and my children possible. Thank you, guys. God bless.